Hi guys! Welcome back to the BGCA Virtual Club. With Black History Month last month and Women's History Month this month, this next STEAM series is going to be about diversity. Before we start our science section though, I want to take a few minutes to talk about history, and more importantly, why these holidays exist. Why do we have a month dedicated to Black history and a month dedicated to women's history when theoretically that's just part of history, right? There may be some names that you recognize even if your school or your community don't actively focus on these holidays. Names like Rosa Parks, who stood up for herself when she was told that someone white had more of a right to something as simple as a seat on the bus. Martin Luther King Jr., who led peaceful protests of hundreds of thousands of people demanding the rights for tens of millions of American citizens. Or Amelia Earhart, who was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic in a time when very few people could do that, and women could do very few things. It's important to know why what is happening today is so important. I cannot put enough value on knowing your history. And Black history and women's history is U.S. history. It's the history of our country, but it's stories that need to be told before they're forgotten. And too often, they're not told. But when you look at history books, it's very easy to forget that that wasn't that long ago. Never forget that history is as recent as yesterday. Kids today are going to remember seeing particular things on the news that kids of tomorrow will think of as history. We are writing future history books right now with our elections, protests, the inventions that are coming out right now, and even the current outbreak. Think of it this way. I have lived in 2 centuries and 3 decades, and I'm less than 30 years old. A lot of people learn in school about inventors like Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the phone, Thomas Edison, who invented light bulbs, Henry Ford, who actually improved the assembly line in such a way that made it so that we could have automobiles created much faster and cheaper. A lot of these things would have absolutely changed the way that today was. But we don't often hear about inventions by minorities. For instance, have any of you learned in school that your home security system is descended from the original home security system created by a nurse named Mary Van Britten Brown? Or that our traffic lights were originally invented by Garrett Morgan? Refrigerated trucks that make our grocery stores possible were invented by Frederick McKinley Jones. Despite the fact that there are a lot of things that were created by people of color or by women, we don't generally learn about them in our history textbooks. Some of this started purposeful, and now it's more of a habit. And we need to break that habit in order to understand our past better and therefore have a better future. If kids today don't see people that look and act and talk like themselves in a career, they're not going to consider that career for their future. We need to make sure that everyone knows that a scientist can look like this, or like this, or like this. The more we know of the past, the more promising our future. So let's dive in.